Under Donald Trump, the United States is now officially being declared a national security threat to Denmark. A Denmark intelligence agency, in their official annual report, is calling the United States a threat to Denmark's sovereignty, a threat to the sovereignty of Greenland, which is a territory within the Kingdom of Denmark.
We need to talk about something absolutely unprecedented that just happened, because the United States under Donald Trump has officially been declared a national security threat by Denmark. Let that sink in for a moment. Denmark, one of America's oldest and closest allies, a founding member of NATO, a country that has stood shoulder to shoulder with the United States through decades of partnership, has just published an official intelligence report naming the United States as a threat to Danish sovereignty. This is not some fringe political group making accusations. This is Denmark's official Defense Intelligence Service putting it in writing in their annual threat assessment that America under Trump poses a danger to their nation. By the way, I am trying to do my best to gather all the information I can for you and share it with you. Please leave your likes and comments, and I would be grateful if you subscribed. Let's continue. But that's just the beginning of this story, because simultaneously, the Trump regime is launching an all-out assault on the International Criminal Court, demanding that they amend their founding charter to give Trump and his war criminals absolute immunity from prosecution. Trump is threatening to sanction ECC judges and prosecutors, to ruin their lives, to destroy the institution itself if they don't comply with his demands, and he's also insisting they drop all investigations into Netanyahu and Israeli war crimes in Gaza. This is what American foreign policy looks like under Trump, alienating our closest allies while attacking the very institutions designed to prevent war crimes and genocide. Let me break down exactly what's in this Danish intelligence report, because the language is extraordinary and the implications are staggering. The Danish Defense Intelligence Service, one of the key espionage agencies in the Nordic region, has for the first time described the United States as a potential security threat alongside China and Russia. Think about that comparison. Denmark is putting the United States in the same category as authoritarian rivals who actively work to undermine Western democracy. This represents a fundamental shift in how a NATO ally views its relationship with America. The report states that the U.S. is increasingly prioritizing its own interests and using economic and technological strength as a tool of power against allies and partners. This isn't speculation or political rhetoric. This is the assessment of professional intelligence analysts who've watched Trump's behavior over the past year and concluded that America can no longer be trusted as a reliable partner. The report specifically identifies Trump's growing interest in Greenland, which is a territory within the Kingdom of Denmark, as a direct threat to Danish sovereignty. Trump has repeatedly suggested he wants to acquire Greenland, treat it as some kind of real estate deal, completely disregarding that this is sovereign Danish territory with its own population and government. The 2025 intelligence outlook from Denmark comes right as we're learning more about Trump's own national security strategy document, and what's in that strategy is genuinely shocking. It's now formal United States policy to support far-right extremist groups that want to destroy the European Union. Read that again. The official policy of the United States government is to back movements aimed at dismantling the EU. The strategy also calls for undermining NATO as a permanent organization, even attacking the perception that NATO is a standing and expanding alliance. And perhaps most disturbing, it explicitly endorses regime change operations in Europe, working to divide the continent and install governments friendly to Trump's authoritarian vision. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented American policy under Trump. We're actively working to destroy the very alliances and institutions that have kept the peace in Europe for nearly 80 years. We're supporting Putin's dream of a fractured, weakened Europe that can't effectively resist Russian aggression. And European nations are responding by declaring us a security threat, because that's exactly what we've become under Trump's leadership. Look at what's happening right now with Trump's support for far-right extremist parties across Europe. The Alternative for Germany, the AfD, which German intelligence has classified as a right-wing extremist organization, just got a red carpet welcome at the New York Republican Party's annual convention. The AfD leader is going to be the keynote speaker. Trump is openly propping up the AfD in Germany, the Reform Party in the UK, Marine Le Pen's national rally in France. These are all Putin-aligned parties that want to pull their countries out of the EU and NATO. They're Putin's puppets, and Trump is empowering them because he shares Putin's goal of destroying Western unity. And it's not just Trump administration officials doing this. MAGA Republican Congress members like Anna Paulina Luna are literally spending time in the Russian embassy right now, hanging out with Russian ambassadors, doing Putin's bidding, in my opinion. The entire Republican Party has become an extension of Russian foreign policy objectives. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Now, while Denmark is declaring us a threat, Reuters broke an incredible story about Trump's demands to the International Criminal Court. The Trump administration wants the ICC to amend its founding document, its core charter, to commit to never investigating Donald Trump or his top officials for war crimes. An administration official confirmed to Reuters that this demand has been communicated to the court and to American allies. And Trump isn't just asking nicely. He's issuing an ultimatum with 3 specific demands. First, amend the charter to give Trump and his people immunity. Second, drop all investigations of Israeli leaders over Gaza. Third, formally end the earlier probe of U.S. troops' actions in Afghanistan. If the ICC doesn't comply with all 3 demands, Trump is threatening to penalize ICC officials personally and sanction the court as an institution. Think about what this means. The United States, which isn't even a member of the ICC, is openly hostile to the primary international body that prosecutes war crimes and genocide. We're threatening judges and prosecutors for doing their jobs. We're demanding immunity for ourselves while the rest of the world is held accountable to international law. This is gangster behavior on a global scale, and there's a very specific reason Trump is doing this now. There's growing concern that in 2029, after Trump leaves office, assuming he does, the ICC will turn its attention to prosecuting him, his vice president, his Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and others for war crimes they're committing right now. The boat strikes that have killed over 100 people, including that September 2nd strike on shipwrecked survivors that violates the Geneva Conventions, those are exactly the kind of actions the ICC was created to prosecute. Trump knows this. He knows that once he's no longer protected by presidential immunity under U.S. law, international law could still hold him accountable. So he's trying to preemptively destroy the ICC's ability to touch him. And rightfully, these people should face war crimes tribunals. They are war criminals. The evidence is mounting. The legal experts have weighed in. The laws of war are clear. What Trump and Hegseth have authorized violates international humanitarian law, and they deserve to be held accountable just like any other war criminal from any other country. But Trump thinks he's above the law, both domestic and international, and he's willing to destroy global institutions to protect himself. Meanwhile, let's talk about what's actually happening on the ground in conflicts around the world, because Trump's claims of being a peacemaker are falling apart in real time. Remember when Trump claimed he'd brought peace to Cambodia and Thailand? No peace there. Remember his supposed deal in Congo? War is still raging, actually worse now than before Trump's fake diplomacy. And in Ukraine, despite Trump's promises to end the war immediately, despite his secret plan that he claimed would bring peace within 24 hours, the fighting continues. According to the Institute for the Study of War, Russia has gained approximately 0.77% of Ukrainian territory since the start of 2025, while suffering disproportionately high personnel costs. Let me put that in perspective. This entire year, with all of Russia's military might, with help from North Korea, China, Belarus, Iran, and now indirectly from the United States through our lack of support for Ukraine, Russia has only managed to take less than 1% of Ukrainian territory. At this rate, as military analysts have calculated, Russia would need to lose 30 million soldiers and spend over 100 years to fully occupy Ukraine through military force. That's why Putin is so desperate to get Trump to hand him territory that Russia can't take by conquest. They want the Donbass region, about 30% of Ukraine's territory, that they haven't been able to capture, despite years of brutal warfare. And what do you think Russia will do once Trump gives them that territory? They won't stop. They'll consolidate, rearm, and push for more. Appeasing aggressors never satisfies them. It only encourages further aggression. As chess grandmaster and pro-democracy activist Garry Kasparov wrote, Trump pressures and insults Zelensky and Ukraine, the victims of Russian aggression who have courageously defended their territory and sovereignty, while offering nothing but concessions and business deals to the genocidal invader. That's Trump's foreign policy in a nutshell. Punish the victims, reward the aggressors, and try to personally profit from whatever deals get made. And we have detailed reporting now about exactly how Trump's envoys are conducting these negotiations. Axios reported that Trump sent his son-in-law Jared Kushner and his real estate buddy Steve Witkoff, neither of whom has any foreign policy experience whatsoever, to demand that Zelensky consent to surrendering all of the Donbass during a December 6th call. These two real estate developers met with Putin in Moscow, and after that meeting, the 28-point surrender plan that Trump's team had drawn up actually got worse. They came back from Moscow and told Zelensky, "Give us Crimea, give us all of Donbass, give us all of eastern Ukraine, hand it over right now, you have no choice, or we're coming after you." That's when Zelensky immediately went to meet with Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, Emmanuel Macron in France, and Friedrich Merz in Germany. He's building a coalition of European leaders who understand that appeasing Russia is catastrophic for European security. He met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Europe is rallying to support Ukraine because they understand what America under Trump apparently doesn't, that allowing Russia to conquer neighbors through force destroys the entire post-World War II international order. The Kiel Institute for World Economy tracks international support for Ukraine, and their latest data is damning for Trump. Since Trump took office, America has provided exactly zero support to Ukraine. Zero. Meanwhile, Europe has stepped up to provide all the military, economic, and humanitarian assistance that Ukraine needs to survive. We've completely abandoned our ally while Russia, backed by North Korea, China, Iran, and Belarus, continues its genocidal invasion. This is what America First foreign policy actually looks like: abandoning friends, empowering enemies, and making the world dramatically less safe. John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, went on record explaining that Trump never read any national security strategy documents during his first term, wouldn't look at them, didn't care about them. Bolton was certain Trump hasn't read the current national security strategy either, even though Trump signed an introduction to it. Bolton doubts Trump even read his own introduction. Trump doesn't have a philosophy, doesn't have a design for American national security, doesn't really do policy the way that term is normally understood in Washington. And that's why the ramifications of Trump's approach are so dangerous. Trump doesn't understand NATO, doesn't understand alliances, genuinely believes that the United States defends Europe, gets nothing out of it, and that Europeans don't pay for their own defense. Bolton admitted that if he thought NATO actually worked that way, he wouldn't support it either. But that's not what a collective defense alliance is. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of how mutual defense pacts function and what America gains from them. The national security strategy that Trump signed but never read explicitly endorses spheres of influence as organizing principle for global politics. It essentially says Europe is Russia's sphere of influence, Asia is China's sphere of influence, the Western Hemisphere is America's sphere of influence, and everything else consists of vassal states aligned with one of the three major powers. This is 19th century great power politics. This is the logic that led to 2 world wars. This is the opposite of the rules-based international order that has prevented great power conflict for nearly 80 years. Under this framework, Trump is literally saying that Europe belongs to Russia, that Japan and Taiwan belong to China, and that Canada, Mexico, and South America belong to the United States. He's endorsing spheres of influence where powerful countries get to dominate their neighbors, and smaller nations have no sovereignty or self-determination. This is why Denmark is calling us a security threat. This is why our NATO allies are terrified. They understand that Trump is abandoning them to Russian aggression. And just as I'm recording this, another major development. The United States military just seized a Venezuelan oil ship that the government claims is violating sanctions. This oil cargo vessel has been taken in what represents a major escalation in Trump's undeclared war in the Caribbean and South America. Trump literally said at his press conference that we're just going to keep the oil, like we're pirates seizing treasure. This is how America conducts itself now under Trump, ignoring international law, taking what we want by force, threatening anyone who objects. The pattern is clear and terrifying. Trump is systematically destroying America's relationships with democratic allies while cozying up to authoritarian leaders. He's undermining NATO and the EU because they represent checks on authoritarian power. He's attacking the International Criminal Court because it could hold him accountable for war crimes. He's supporting far-right extremist movements across Europe because they serve Putin's interests. He's abandoning Ukraine to Russian conquest. He's threatening to seize territory from allies like Greenland. He's conducting military operations without legal authority. And he's doing all of this while our closest allies are declaring us a national security threat. This is not normal. This is not just another president with different policies. This is a fundamental betrayal of American values and interests. This is the dismantling of the international order that America built and that has served American security and prosperity for generations. This is the victory of authoritarianism over democracy, of might over right, of corruption over law. Denmark is right to call us a threat. Europe is right to be terrified. Ukraine is right to seek support elsewhere. And the International Criminal Court is right to continue its investigations despite Trump's threats. Because if there's no accountability for war crimes, if powerful leaders can simply threaten and destroy institutions that might hold them responsible, then we've abandoned any pretense of living under the rule of law. We've embraced the law of the jungle, where the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. This is Trump's America, isolated from our allies, aligned with dictators, hostile to international law, conducting military operations without authorization, supporting extremist movements abroad, and declaring our own sphere of influence while ceding Europe to Russia and Asia to China. This is not making America great. This is making America into everything we once stood against. And the world is noticing. The world is responding, and our allies are concluding that we can no longer be trusted. That's the truth that Trump and his supporters don't want to hear. America under Trump is not respected, it's feared and resented. We're not leading the world, we're alienating it. We're not defending freedom, we're attacking it. And we're not promoting American interests, we're undermining them in service of Trump's personal agenda and Putin's geopolitical goals. This matters. This has consequences. And those consequences are playing out right now as Denmark declares us a threat, as Europe prepares to defend itself without us, as the ICC continues investigating despite our threats, and as the entire post-war international system that America created begins to crumble. This is the legacy Trump is building. This is what America first actually means. America alone, America isolated, America diminished. And we deserve better. The world deserves better. And stopping this madness before it destroys everything should be every American's priority. Hit subscribe to stay informed about these critical developments. We're not going to stop covering the truth about what Trump is doing to America's place in the world. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. Thanks for watching, and let's keep fighting for accountability and for the values that actually made America a beacon of hope rather than a source of fear.